Okay, so we're going to talk about the sweeper today. It's a single device containing a phaser, flanger, and filter. But why? Why group these devices together? To explain that, we should start here, at the filter. This filter has a selector here that you can use to select the filter type. I'm not going to go over each type, but I'll show you a couple so that you can see what's going on in case you don't know. We'll start with the state variable low-pass filter. As you can see, as I sweep down using this frequency knob, it filters the high frequencies out and has a gentle slope. And when I turn the resonance up and sweep, the shape gets a bit steeper and louder at the cutoff point. If we select this multiple feedback high-pass filter that has a 24 dB per octave slope, you can see the sharper curve as the filter sweeps up. Here's what it looks and sounds like if you increase the resonance. Now let's select the state variable notch filter. Take a look at what this one does. As you can see, it's rejecting a narrow band that sweeps with the cutoff point. Now, if I add a little resonance, you can see the shape changes. Let's bring that down. Now, as I'm sweeping around, doesn't that kinda... Here, let me modulate this frequency dial with the LFO. Dial in a frequency. Kinda sounds like it's phasing a bit, right? We just made a single band or single pole rudimentary phaser. Now let's switch over to the phaser and flesh this idea out. While a phaser isn't really using band reject filters and is rather using all pass filters phase inverted 180 degrees, if I bring the number of filters or stages down to 1 and run it through this analyzer, the effect is the same. Changing the bandwidth has this effect. And this is what happens when you add a stage. Now we have 2 valleys. You can add up to 40. Let's change the bandwidth again so you can see. And adding feedback changes the intensity of the peaks and notches. Pressing this polarity button will invert the phaser filter so that instead of notches in the frequency spectrum, there will be peaks. This signal is run in parallel with the dry signal within the sweeper and summed back together at the output. So you have the dry signal as well as the affected phasey signal, unless you hit this button. Muting the dry signal will give you more of a tremolo effect, but let's hear some examples. Here's a basic phaser patch. The guitar coming in is mono. The frequency of the phaser is being modulated by the LFO. If I turn this off, the sound becomes static. Dial this back up. The spread knob adds width. It works by detuning the stereo channels. Now let's kick this up a notch and add more stages. Now you can really hear the frequencies rising and falling. We can reverse the polarity and see what that sounds like. You can modulate the rate of the LFO using the envelope as the source. Let me turn this up and I'll exaggerate it. The rate of the LFO is rising and falling to this envelope shape. Let's sync this to the tempo. And dial it in. And bring this down. Now we have this lush, wide stereo guitar with some subtle movement. Quick reminder of where we started. Nice. Now let's take a look at the flanger. The flanger is basically a comb filter with adjustable feedback. The principle is to split the input signal in 2. Run one signal dry and the other through a comb filter delay and then sum the 2 signals. So, to simplify, the wet signal is delayed a tiny bit and the frequency knob controls how much. Sweeping or modulating the frequency knob back and forth results in a frequency response with peaks and valleys similar to the phaser. So, a comb filter uses delay to achieve its comb filtering. It's similar to when you sync two of the same record up and play them on turntables. The subtle variations in speed of the platters will cause the same flanger effect, like sweeping the frequency dial in Sweeper. You can adjust the feedback to intensify the effect or keep it mellow. And all the same modulators and modifiers apply. The last thing I want to show you is the audio follower. It's an envelope follower. It draws an envelope based on the incoming audio. You can then shape that envelope further with the gain, attack, and release knobs, and then apply it to the frequency parameter, LFO rate, and volume. Take a listen. If I dial this modulator to frequency knob up and dial this low pass frequency knob down, you can hear the filter moving to the beat. It's opening as it receives each transient. I can make it open faster by dialing the attack down. Or slower. Let's dial that back. If I lower the release time, you can hear the filter close faster after the audio triggers it. Also note that this display is showing the output, not the input. That's why you can see the changes I'm making. You can use this dial to change the rate of the LFO based on the incoming signal, and then use that to modulate stuff. You can also use the incoming signal to trigger this envelope. It has preset shapes, or you can draw your own. Oh, and I almost forgot. This overdrive sounds awesome. Sometimes I run stuff through Sweeper just for this. So yeah, I think Sweeper may be a bit overlooked. It's yet another tool in a rack full of amazing tools. So open up the DAW of your choice, the Reason rack, and start sweeping. Also, don't be a bozo like I was. If you use the Reason DAW or the Reason rack plugin, you probably missed the game-changing shortcut in this video.